a more real perspective, deep perspective, because ultimately we're not Brahmins. Kiba vipra kibanyasi shudra keninoi, ye Krishna tattvaveta se guru hoy. That's what Kaviraj Goswami says, one of the very famous verses of Chaitanya Caritamrita. Now it's not that we, like now there's propaganda in the nation state of India to, put down the Brahmin caste a lot, right? Brahmins are almost ashamed to say, yeah, I'm not from a Brahmin caste. So that's completely nonsense as well. I mean, we have these verses, Namo, what is it? Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. So this shloka, forever establishes that Krishna is very favorable and sympathetic towards the Brahmins. Having said that, though, coming back to this important verse by Kaviraj Goswami, Kiba vipra kibanyasi shudra kenino ye Krishna tattvaveta se guru hoy. In the Vaishnava tradition, whether it's Gaudiya, North India, or Sri, for example, in South India, you go to Sri Rangam, Tirupati. It doesn't matter what caste you're born in. If you have love for Vishnu, then that makes you much higher than any Brahmin. And therefore, the tradition of non-Brahmins giving diksha to Brahmins is something that some Brahmins find very, abominable, but the Vaishnavas have no problem with that. And therefore you have historical evidence both in the Sri Sampradaya or South Indian Vaishnavism as well as in North Indian Vaishnavism of non-Brahmins giving diksha to everybody, including Brahmins. Like there's the example of Narottam Das Thakur. The song we just sang, Shivuru Charana Padma, is written by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said is his the incarnation of his ecstasy. Some amazing title Narottam Das Thakur had. And he didn't come, I think he came from a Kayasta, Varna. He wasn't a Brahmin. And he gave initiation, and some of his most prominent disciples were from the Brahmin caste, And those those Brahmins who, in a Vaishnava perspective, don't have that higher understanding, that higher vision, which comes directly from Bhagavad Gita. Vidya vinaya sampane brahmane gavihashini shuni chaiva swapake cha pandita sama darshina. Krishna right there in chapter 5, verse 16 says, right, that the pandit, a real pandit, has samadarshina. And so he sees with samadarshina, he sees with equal vision a Brahmin, a Shudra, an elephant, a cow, a dog eater, because the real pandit sees beyond the mind, beyond the body, and he sees what's really real, which is the jiva, the individual purusha, the individual soul, and next to it, the paramatma, the supreme soul. And those two figures are the only reality, really, the only eternal reality in any physical body. So in the body of a Brahmin, inside there's a jiva who must have done some punya. We'll read here in a few verses about punya. He must have done some good karma, so-called, to be able to be born in a high caste family, in a high caste Brahmin body. But the point is, that jiva is not a Brahmin. He may be a Brahmin for 60 years, 50 years, 70 years, 80 years, but what was he in his past life, and what will he be in his next life? And you have many Brahmins in India who eat meat, who go see prostitutes, who do all sorts of sinful activities. So their Brahmin caste, their Brahmin thread will not save them at the time of death. Right? And similarly, you have examples of people who are, from a lower caste, who are great saints. The best example in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is Haridas Thakur. It's amazing that, every day we say, Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Privashkacharya, and we say, Shila Nam Acharya, Shila Haridas Thakur. Now, in Kali Yuga, we believe that the Yuga Dharma is what? Chanting the holy name. It's not puja. It's not puja. I mean, we do puja. It definitely strengthens us. It's essential for our spiritual life. But technically speaking, Kaler dosha nide rajan astyek mahadguna kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha param brajetan. Harer nama eva kevalam kalo nasye eva nasye eva gatir anyatha. In Kali, there's so many shlokas, at least in the Vaishnava Siddhanta, that, in Kali Yuga, the Yuga Dharma is chanting of the holy name of Hari. And in ISKCON, Prabhupada put special emphasis on Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, someone who is the Nam Acharya, there cannot be a more respectable title, a more glorious title, a more important title than that of Nam Acharya. He's not Archana Acharya or Puja Acharya. He's the Nam Acharya, right? And who was and where did Haridas Thakur take birth? What family did he take birth in? In a Muslim family. Now, some devotees say that it's a great arrangement of Krishna, because now with the Islamization of Europe, a great argument to the Muslim community, which hopefully will also become Vaishnavas, at least in some part, is like, look, no, our greatest saint was Muslim. So please, chant Hare Krishna, It's a great trump card, a joker card. Not that we're supposed, when you play cards and you have a joker, the joker card is the best card because it can take any value, So the joker card of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the face of, and in India also, you have a growing Islamization problem in some sense, especially if they want to, establish Sharia law and then get rid of democracy, and then next thing you have Aurangzeb again destroying Srirangam, destroying other temple. Who knows what could happen, right? But somehow the jivas in those bodies have to be reached, and I find it quite interesting that Haridas Thakur, the greatest Acharya in our tradition, came from a Muslim background. So coming back to the story, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they lost their caste, but they don't care, and we should not care, because again, nothing can take away their Vaishnavism, nothing can take away their bhakti, right? And bhakti is the overriding principle. And if you're a Brahmin and you have zero bhakti, good luck. If you're a mlecha and you have full bhakti, you have perfection, right? So, coming to this verse, the context is that Sanatana Goswami is in jail. Rupa Goswami sends him a message and says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to Mathura. So Sanatana Goswami wants to get out of the jail. That's the context. And so he bribes the jailkeepers. That never happens in India, of course, bribing. That's something that is completely unknown to Indians. That's a joke. So it's funny. We see it even in the pages of Caritamrita. There's bribing going on, but this is bribing for a pure purpose. This is bribing for bhakti. So in that sense, there's a higher principle. And that is a whole other discussion. To what degree can mundane morality be broken for the sake of bhakti, right? Ramanuja Acharya, I think it's Ramanuja or Madhvacharya, but it's a historical fact that he hired, or he had some gundas, some real criminals, help build, I don't know if it was Srirangam or some big temple. And then according to historical evidence, he basically arranged for them to be killed after having constructed, the temple. That's an extreme example of this discussion, to what degree, to what degree does the end justify the means? And I don't want to get into the discussion because it's a gray area, in my opinion. I don't have a solid conclusion on it. And I would rather, and I think we should rather err on the side of caution, and be good citizens, be moral, follow the rules of the land, follow the rules of Varnashram and so on. But maybe it's an example to show just how much bhakti is independent and all-powerful and ultimate. So anyway, Here's the verse. Sanatana Goswami just told the jailkeeper, "Dear sir," this is verse 5, before we read this one together. "Dear sir, you are a saintly person and are very fortunate." He's speaking to a jailkeeper. Now, maybe the jailkeeper is a very pious Muslim, but probably not. So you see Sanatana Goswami is using diplomacy, he's giving him compliments. You know, Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur also, he says, like, "My dear sir, you are great, you are so learned, there's no one greater than you. Now please forget all this and accept the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." And you see sometimes also in the book distributors, who give compliments to people, but sincere. If it becomes completely hypocritical, then it's not so good. But sincere, just compliments so that they will be more favorable. I remember when I was in the Los Angeles airport, I had a friend, Charu Chandra Prabhu, who was from Jamaica, and God, he could talk to people. And so one day there was this old lady with her little Chihuahua gray dog, Beverly Hills old lady walking by to catch her flight, and he approached her, and he only asked her one thing. He said, "Is this your dog?" "Oh yes, it is." And then he crouched down. And for 3 minutes, "Oh, you're such a nice," he was just speaking to the dog, and then not even speaking to the lady. And then finally, just at the very end, after 2 minutes of, "Oh, doggy, 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 doggy," he got up and he says, "Okay, ma'am, we just distribute these Bhagavatis. Can you please give a donation?" Nothing about the book. "Oh, sure," So he was a brahmachari. It's okay to accept donations for books, but it's the same sort of principle you find here. "Dear sir, you are a saintly person and are very fortunate. You have full knowledge of the revealed scriptures, such as the Quran and similar books." And here's this verse, so let us read it together, Prabhus. "Eka bandi chade yadi nija dharma dekhiya." Eka bandi chade yadi nija dharma dekhiya. Samsaraha ite tare mukha karena ghoshanya. Eka bandi chade yadi nija dharma dekhiya. Samsaraha ite tare mukha karena ghoshanya. Eka bandi chade yadi nija dharma dekhiya. Samsaraha ite tare mukta karina ghoshana. In your best Bengali, please. Eka bandi chade yadi nija dharma dekhiya. Samsaraha ite tare mukta karina ghoshana. Eka bandi chade yadi nija dharma dekhiya. Samsaraha ite tare mukta karina ghoshana. Anyone else? Eka bandi chade yadi nija dharma dekhiya. Samsaraha ite tar mukta karina ghoshana. So, Eka bandi, one imprisoned person. Chade, one releases. Yadi, if. Nija dharma, one's own religion. Dekhiya, consulting. Samsara ha ite, from material bondage. Tar, or tare, him. Mukta karena, releases. Gosanya or Gosana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Sanatana Goswami says here, to this jailkeeper, in his attempt to escape the jail. And why is he in jail? I'm sorry, I didn't finish the count. He's in jail because, as many devotees know here, he and his brother just stopped working, and they just stayed in their quarters, and pretending to be sick all day, they just read Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what devotees like to do. Vaishnavas, advanced Vaishnavas, and we wish we had that same, even a fraction of that taste. But advanced Vaishnavas, they just like to get together and chant Krishna's name and read about Krishna and hear about Krishna Katha. Like we have the example of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, just a small parenthesis. He's he's actually considered to be Vrishabhanu Maharaj. He's the father in Goloka Vrindavan. He's the father of Radharani, and he appears in Chaitanya Leela as Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and he externally appeared to be a very materialistic person with nice fine clothes and jewelry and oiled hair and so on. And yet it's stated that when Mukunda started reciting in a melodious tone one shloka from 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, Pundarik Vidyanidhi went into what could be perceived as epileptic fit, but it was actually just spiritual ecstasy, ripping his clothes off, tearing out his hair, rolling on the ground, screaming. His attendants had to just, calm him down. Just see the reaction to just hearing Krishna Katha, We go to Bhagavatam class, and then as soon as we hear Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, there's a joke actually in ISKCON. If you're suffering from insomnia, go to the Srimad Bhagavatam class. So it shows you the radical difference between exalted souls and us. But here, so Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami say, okay, enough of this government work, and we'll just pretend we're sick, we're very sick, and then we just read Bhagavatam all day at home. They invited some Brahmins, and they were just doing Krishna Katha all day. Tesham satata yukta, what is it? Machita madgata prana bodhayantas parasparam katayantas chamam nityam tushyanticha ramanticha. Krishna says in the, 10th chapter that my pure devotees, they derive great satisfaction from always enlivening one another and discussing about me. So that's what Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were doing. But then the Nawab Hussain Shah found out, and he got really angry, and then he just told Sanatana Goswami, because I think Sanatana Goswami didn't want to cooperate or something. So long story short, Nawab Hussain Shah said, okay, then you go to jail. So Sanatana Goswami says to the jailkeeper, if one releases a conditioned soul or imprisoned person according to religious principles, he himself is also released from material bondage by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So please repeat after me. If one releases a conditioned soul or imprisoned person according to religious principles, he himself is also released from material bondage by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here's Prabhupada's purport. Prabhupada says, it appears from this statement that Sanatana Goswami, who was formerly a minister of the Nawab, was trying to cheat the Mohammedan superintendent, the jailkeeper. A jail superintendent had only an ordinary education, or practically no education, and he was certainly not supposed to be very advanced in spiritual knowledge. However, just to satisfy him, Sanatana Goswami praised him as a very learned scholar of the scriptures. The ahankara, we all have this ahankar problem. Jai Nishingadev ki jai. And those who praise us, they are our friends. And those who criticize us, they are our enemies. And the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, if I may tell a short story that's mentioned in one of his biographies, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had one man who criticized him for years. And the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur hated that man. Naturally, he's insulting our guru. And after many years, this man died. And they brought the news to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that, so-and-so has died. And it stated that Bhaktisiddhanta had some tears that fell from his eyes. And Guru Maharaj, why are you crying? And he said, he was my best friend. Very advanced. The jailkeeper could not deny that he was a learned scholar, because when one is elevated to an exalted position, one thinks oneself fit for that position. Sanatana Goswami was correctly explaining the effects of spiritual activity, and the jailkeeper connected his statement with his release from jail. You see? So Sanatana Goswami is speaking like, if you release a soul from samsara, if you release a soul from repeated birth and death, that's the greatest para-upakar, that's the greatest act of generosity. So in French, there's this word double entente, a double understanding, a double meaning. So on the surface, Sanatana Goswami is saying, yes, when speaking spiritually, but the jailkeeper, being of a lower consciousness, understands it to mean, freeing one from jail. Well, he's not wrong either, because Sanatana Goswami wants that, but still, he's playing on this double entente. Prabhupada continues, there are innumerable conditioned souls rotting in the material world, imprisoned by Maya under the spell of sense gratification. That's us, Prabhus. The living entity is so entranced by the spell of Maya that in conditioned life, even a pig feels satisfied. There are two kinds of covering powers exhibited by Maya. One is called prakshipatmika, and the other is called avaranatmika. When one is determined to get out of material bondage, the prakshimatmika shakti, the spell of diversion, impels one to remain in conditioned life, fully satisfied by sense gratification. Due to the other power, avaratmika, a conditioned soul feels satisfied even if he is rotting in the body of a pig or a worm in stool. So there's these two forms of Maya. One is a covering, it covers us, and the other one, it puts us in illusion. To release a conditioned soul from material bondage is very difficult because the spell of Maya is so strong. I mean, we experience it. We've been chanting Hare Krishna for 30 years, whatever, 15 years, 5 years. And, we feel we're still completely, susceptible to Maya. And we have, accidental fall downs, as we are calling them, Again, quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, one thing I like that he said is that that we have to be prepared to shed gallons of blood for the spiritual welfare of people. So members of ISKCON, whether they're living in the Brahmacharya ashram or whether they're living at home, we have inherited this mission, this mood of the Vaishnava Acharyas to be ready to sacrifice for the sake of others. You gentlemen who are coming from India, in Germany, you see these German Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, how much they have sacrificed. And not just for their own mukti, but for the sake of helping others come to Vishnu. Right? That should inspire you. In India, just speaking contemporarily, like ISKCON in India today has a quite good reputation, right? More or less. I mean, the Prime Minister Modi came and cut the ribbon for the grand opening of the East of Kailash temple in New Delhi. I mean, Angela Merkel probably would not come, to the 40th anniversary of Nishingadev's installation next September. So in India, there's this, there's somewhat of a status of ISKCON. At least it's well respected, So joining ISKCON in India, in terms of social status, is in many cases a step up. Many sincere, we're not criticizing their motivation, although, who has completely pure motivations in coming to God is an interesting question. And actually, as we progress, our motivation becomes purified, you know. But many people in India benefit materially from joining ISKCON, you know. There's extreme examples, for example, of very poor individuals living, let's say, in Bangladesh, right? And they join a temple, and all of a sudden they're, even just from a 3-meal-a-day perspective, they're eating much better than they would ever, maybe. And then what to speak if they get a position or if they get a green card and are able to go to America and so on. Why am I saying this? Because when you look in the West, it's a whole different story. Maybe in a few centuries, ISKCON, hopefully before, but ISKCON today, when you join ISKCON, either full-time or even become affiliated with ISKCON today in the Western world, your social status, gets a hit. And there's so many stories of devotees from rich families, respectable families whose parents were outraged. our son or our daughter has joined a sect, as they call them, a cult. I've experienced, I remember when I became a Brahmin, I interrupted my studies, which was, I could have not done that, but that really, aggravated. But I remember I was distributing books at the LA airport, and there was one girl, Michelle Bernstein. She was 1 grade lower than me in high school, and she used to have a crush on me. I was 1 year older than her, and I've treated her as a friend, but I knew she liked me, so. And so, 2 years later, I'm at the airport distributing Prabhupada's books, and, with a shaved pants and shirt, but with shaved head and shika. And Michelle Bernstein walks by to catch a flight. And she had heard, Cyril has become a Hare Krishna. And so and I'll always remember, she approached me, and I said, Michelle, hi. And she looked at me shocked, and she was like, no. She couldn't, she was like, it was like a nightmare, my high school beloved has joined the Hare Krishna movement, what horror, right? There's this joke, that you see in this cartoon. A young high school girl comes home, and the mother and father are, watching television, absorbed on the sofa. And then the girl comes and says, Mommy, Daddy, today I smoked my first marijuana joint. And then the parents, not fazed, oh, very good, Lucy, go to your room. And next image, she comes home, Mommy and Daddy, today I took my first dose of heroin. Oh, very good. Go to your room. And then third, she comes in, Mommy and Daddy, I'm pregnant. Oh, very good. Go to your room. And then the fourth one, Mommy and Daddy, I became a Hare Krishna. And then you see the reaction of the parents flipping out. What? What scandal, So the point is, coming back to this verse, the point is that, sacrificing for a higher cause for the sake of others. And so, the Indian, our dear Indian congregation members should feel appreciation for the sacrifice that these, local German Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis have done. Because for them to adopt Krishna Bhakti, what to speak of, giving a significant amount of time, like being a head pujari or being a temple president or being one of the, devotees here who are maintaining the whole operation, that's an incredible sacrifice. It's an incredible sacrifice. Yeah. Continuing with the purport. To release a conditioned soul from a material bondage is very difficult because the spell of Maya is so strong. Even when the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself descends to deliver conditioned souls, asking them to surrender unto him. What's the verse? The verse most quoted by Prabhupada ever? Bjorn, you should learn this verse because it's the most quoted ever by Prabhupada. What's this famous verse about Krishna asking souls to surrender to him? It starts with S. Yes. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami ma shuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion, all dharmas, and just take shelter of me, or surrender unto me. Alone, mam ekam. something to consider. Mam ekam, he says. Mam ekam sharanam rajam. Aham tvams, I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Sarva papebhyo. Mokshayami ma shuchaha. Don't worry. Don't worry. You don't have to have necessarily your investment in all the houses, so to speak. You know, Krishna is saying, you just worship me, that's enough. These are the words of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And interestingly, that's the one verse that Prabhupada quoted the most. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vrajam aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami ma shuchaha. So when Krishna comes himself, the conditioned souls do not agree to the Lord's proposals. Right? What's that story of this man, and Narada Muni comes and says, okay, you know, come, I'll take you back to Vaikuntha, and no, I'm very busy, I just got married, and so he comes back 20 years later, you know, okay, now let's are you ready? No, I have my own children, I have to get them married now, and my business is still going on, and right, and right before death, no, and then, so there's never time to take shelter of Krishna. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami said, somehow or other, if one helps another gain release from the bondage of Maya, he is certainly recognized immediately by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1869, Nacha tasman manusheshu kaschin me priya krittamaha bhavita na cha me tasmad anyak priyataro bhuvi. The greatest service one can render to the Lord is to try to infuse devotional service into the heart of the conditioned soul, so that the conditioned soul may be released from conditional life. And when Prabhupada says this, he's walking his talk. You know, there's this expression, you know, to walk your talk. He's walking his talk. When Prabhupada is saying, you know, the greatest service that one can do to the Lord is to try to infuse devotional service or bhakti into the heart of the conditioned soul, so that the conditioned soul may be released from conditional life. Prabhupada is writing this after he left India at the age of 70 years old, without a penny, having 2 heart attacks on the boat to New York, landing in New York City, having himself said, when I landed, I did not know if I should turn right or turn left. That's the person who's saying this. And then for 1 year, there's no historical record. 1966 and 1965, no, we don't know how he ate, how he survived. At 1 or 2 points, Prabhupada says, you know, like, these were very difficult year in New York City. If you've ever been to New York City, the Lower East Side today is, you know, very hip and super expensive, but Lower East Side back then, and what to speak of the weather. You know, Prabhupada had lived in West Bengal and Uttar Pradesh, in Vrindavan, had visited Oriya a few times, and had traveled across India when he was a Grihastha pharmacy man, but he had never left India. I don't know if he had been to the Himalayas. I don't think he ever mentions he went to the Himalayas, and if he did, it would be just for a short visit, right? But here he lands in New York City. The weather in New York in the winter is grueling. Snow, wind, unbelievable cold. So that's where he was, you know. And why? 70 years old. He was comfortably in Vrindavan Dham. You know, a few years before his, you know, the Shastra says, if you leave your body in Vrindavan Dham, you go directly to Vaikuntha. What business did he have to do? Begging, you know, humiliating himself, begging Sumati Morarji, please give me a ticket. Just let me go for free. No, Swamiji, you will die there. Doesn't matter. My guru gave me this order. I got to do this. You know, it's touching. And it's for us. And for Indians too. Because if Prabhupada didn't come to India, to America, you know, Vaishnavism would not see the renaissance it's experiencing in India today. No way. And the proof is that Prabhupada tried in India before coming to the West, you know. He tried with, what's it called, the League of Devotees, he called it, in Jhansi. Nobody came forward. He would ask these rich Indian gentlemen, please give me one of your sons, I'll train him, you know, to be a Pakka Vaishnava Brahmin. Nobody, you know, no interest, no reciprocation, nothing in India, you know. Then he says, okay, I have this order, my guru gave me this order, I gotta go. 70 years old, 2 heart attacks, lands in America with just books. And by the way, this temple has a treasure. No, why are you smiling, Prabhu? Oh, I thought you were smiling. Back there, behind you, right next to Prabhu, in that little wooden case, is is 3 volumes, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, of the original Srimad Bhagavatams that Prabhupada brought to America. This is priceless. There's only a few copies around the planet, and in most cases it's just one volume. This, you have the 3 volumes. These are the original volumes. Prabhupada came with 1 or 2 cases. He had 0 money, but 2 cases of Bhagavatams. And that's how he survived. Please buy this book. That's how he got his money, for surviving. So we have 3 copies here. It's a great ISKCON antique. So coming back to this verse, Prabhupada very much knew this. When he's saying that there's no greater service that you can do than to try, at the end of his life, to try to help others come to bhakti. Prabhupada is the living example of that. When you should read the Jaladuta prayers. When Prabhupada arrives have you ever read the Jaladuta prayers? You look it up on Google. Just the Jaladuta. Who knows what is the Jaladuta? The Jaladuta was the name of the steamship, the boat, on which Prabhupada finally got a ticket. He bugged Sumati Morarji so much. He was the owner of this steamship company, the Scindia Steamship Company. So he bugged her so much. He would sit for hours at the entrance of her office for her to arrive. Please give me a ticket. Fine, but I'm not responsible, with what happens to you. So fine. So on that Jaladuta, when he arrives in Boston Harbor, he writes these prayers. And these prayers are just so wonderful. And he quotes, key verses from the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam, describing the whole process of precisely of this purification that takes place if people just start hearing. He had such faith, that if people can just, if somehow these Americans who are under the, gunas of Tamaguna and Rajaguna, of course, if Prabhupada came to New Delhi or Bangalore today, I bet he would say the same thing, Prabhupada came to New York in 1966 and saw, this, oh my God, this very fallen society, but nobody is spared. Kali doesn't spare anybody, right? Including India, especially urban India. No hold bar. Kali is not, the influence of Kali is not sentimental. Acha, India, okay, yeah, I will not touch India, you bet. On the contrary, he attacks India, maybe we could say all the more. So Prabhupada arrives and says, oh my God, how? And he says in his prayer, how will I convince these people about Krishna? How will they understand this message? So he prays, please make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding, which is an important factor also, this point of time, place, and circumstance, and how we can adjust, while remaining anchored to the rock, so to speak, and yet geared to the times. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? Right? And at the end he prays, I have no bhakti, I have no knowledge, but what does he say? I have one thing. He admits he has one thing in his signature. Huh? His vision of his guru, yeah. But he says, he says, I have no faith and no devotion, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. He says, I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. Right? Which is significant. He had nothing, no deity, he couldn't do arti, he just had these Bhagavatams, no money, but he has one thing, which is the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Prabhupada quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur here in about 5-6 lines more of the purport. But let me read this sentence again. The greatest service one can render to the Lord is to try to infuse devotional service into the heart of the conditioned soul, so that the conditioned soul may be released from conditioned life. I mean, we can humbly ask, we ask our Indian well-wishers, to assist this mission. If you actually believe in that Sanatana Dharma is the solution for the world problems, is the most, sophisticated theology on the marketplace of religions, then please continue supporting this movement somehow or other. Because this movement, ISKCON, really is dedicated to helping jivas, whether they're in Gujarati bodies or Alaskan bodies or Nigerian bodies or Bavarian bodies, to come to Krishna, to take shelter of Krishna. So if you're busy, then you can assist somehow or other. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the spiritual master of Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said that a Vaishnava is recognized by his preaching work. That is, by convincing the conditioned soul about his eternal position. Right? So you can recognize, Bhaktivinoda Thakur kind of set that standard. You can recognize the status of a Vaishnava by how much of a touchstone, how much of a kalpavriksha he is. Not kalpavriksha, how do you say chintamani? By how many people he is able to convince that, hey, you are not your body, you are an eternal servant of Krishna, you belong in Goloka Vrindavan. With Krishna, you have rejected Krishna, and therefore now you are suffering in the material world, in the cycle of birth and death. Take shelter of Krishna again. We're in Kali Yuga, so just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Go back to his kingdom. Someone who's able to convince people of that is an exalted soul. And again, here we have to, give credit to where credit is due. You see the miracle of Prabhupada, his Shakti. He came to New York City, no money, old man, one could say his voice was not the most, deep, profound, attractive voice, materially. But because of his Shakti, because of his pure heart, he melted the hearts of hundreds and hundreds of young, independent, young men and women coming from the, materially number one leading country in the world. And he would say, I am an old man from India, right? But I'm bringing Krishna as he is, and therefore there's effect. So what is that eternal position that we are supposed to convince others of? It is explained here as Nija Dharma. It is the living entity's eternal position to serve the Lord, right? We are servants. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kapunoi. Nitya Siddha. Jivera Sarup Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das. Another shloka that Kaviraj Goswami says. Nitya Jivera Swarup Hoy. So the Swarup of the Jiva, the function of the Jiva, we are all Jivas. And so the Swarup, the function of each Jiva is Krishna Nitya Das. That's our function. That we are eternal servants of Krishna. Inside, as souls. But now, because of Maya, we are trying to be controllers. Right? Aham mameti. This is my wife, this is my husband, this is my country, this is my car, this is my caste, this is my money. I am, ahankara vimuratma kartaham iti manyate. Therefore, Prabhupada concludes, therefore, to help one get release from material bondage is to awaken one to the dormant understanding that he is the eternal servant of Krishna. And here Prabhupada quotes this shloka, Jivera Sarup Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das. Right. This will be further explained by the Lord himself to Sanatan Goswami. So I'll read the verse again and we can end. Sanatan Goswami says, if one releases a conditioned soul or imprisons person according to religious principles, he himself is also released from material bondage by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jai. Srila Sanatan Goswami ki jai. Any quick comment or question? Going once, going twice. Sold. Okay, thank you, Prabhus. Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Nishingadev Prahlad ki jai.
Please. settings. That's what I saw when I saw what he told me that